Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. New York State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel. And now, please welcome the 57th Governor of the great state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Good morning. There's an Art Deco building in Chelsea on the West Side Highway at West 20th Street. In the nearly 100 years since it was built, it's had many lives, from a boarding house for merchant sailors docked on the Hudson to a correctional facility for women known as Bayview. From that, it went to become a derelict eyesore after sustaining major damage during Hurricane Sandy. And it was abandoned for the last dozen years, a visible memorial to decay and decline. And no one seemed to care until now. And that's why we're moving one step closer to seeing this building reborn yet again, with 124 units of affordable housing, including homes for individuals reentering our community after incarceration and those suffering from mental health challenges. And I want to thank the people who never gave up on this project, the true believers who saw that the possibility was always there. It just took leadership to get it over the finish line. I want to thank our Senator Brad Hoylman, for his strong advocacy of this project. You'll be hearing from him in a couple of moments. Our Borough President, Mark Levine, who looks at all these buildings and sees the promise and the possibilities. Thank him for his leadership here as well. Also, Tony Simone could not join us, a little bit under the weather today, but he's been a strong champion as well. And I also want to thank John Monsell, the CEO of the Osborne Association as well. And my dream team, our Commissioner of Corrections, who's joined us here today, as well as Hope Knight, who is the Empire State Development CEO and President as well. So, you know, I don't need to say this. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. New York State is experiencing a housing crisis. It's across our state, but it's particularly acute here in New York City. The supply of available rental housing is the lowest it's been since the 1960s, when rent regulation first began. Right now, the vacancy rate is less than 1.5%. As you know, experts consider a healthy vacancy rate at about 5 to 8%, and we're nowhere close to that. It's real simple, my friends. When supply goes down, prices go up, and the opposite occurs as well. But this is also one of the top reasons people leave our state, is the prohibitive cost of housing. And since I became governor 3 years ago, my vision for New York State has been crystal clear. I want it to be a place where we build the housing that New Yorkers so desperately want and need. A place where first responders and teachers can afford to live among the people they work for and serve. Where seniors don't have to leave where they grew up, where they raised their children and raise their families. They can actually be around the grandkids. And we're vulnerable New Yorkers who are already facing daunting challenges in life can sleep at night knowing that they are secure. Now, tackling a crisis of this magnitude takes bold leadership and creative ideas. And that's why I've worked with our state legislature, Majority Leader Andre Stewart-Cousins, our Speaker Carl Hastings, working with my team in the administration to sit down with legislators, talk about them. What are the options? What are the possibilities? And I also said, let's take a look at state-owned assets. We certainly have a vast inventory of existing and buildings and abandoned properties. Let's look at all the state-owned real estate and identify those that are underutilized, and we can adapt them for other uses. I convened the Prison Redevelopment Commission in 2022, and their recommendations shined the light on so many possibilities around housing in particular. And that's where our idea on how we wanted to reimagine Bayview came to life. So in the fall of last year, we requested proposals to redevelop the site. And I'm delighted to announce today the winning project, a joint venture between Camber Property Group and Osborne Association. And so it's called Liberty Landing. As you can see, it will transform this former jail into 124 new homes, housing units 100%, which will be permanently affordable. And not only that, this is how we take care of people who need extra help. 74 units will be set aside for formerly incarcerated individuals who just want a chance to be part of society once again. Liberty Landing will feature on-site supportive services for people, for those who are just looking for that second chance. Services like job training, family and relationship coaching, nutrition counseling, mental health care, and substance abuse disorder treatment will be available. Now, these will be provided by Osborne Association, which has the reputation and the decades of experience operating supportive housing that breaks the cycle of recidivism and ensures that our New Yorkers returning back have the tools and resources they need to survive and thrive. But also, this project will feature over 9,000 square feet of community space with programming tailored to meet the needs of young people in the surrounding area, as well as 15 short-term transitional housing units to help those suffering from mental illness so they can gain skills and resilience and get back on a path toward independence. This is all part of our work to help New Yorkers, as well as end our housing crisis and make our state more affordable and more livable. In our last budget, we worked with the legislature to secure the most transformative housing deal in half a century. It includes new incentives and zoning relief right here in New York City, new protections for renters, $500 million to build up 15,000 new homes on state-owned property, and $600 million to support a variety of new housing developments statewide. And that's all on top of our continuing five-year, $25 billion housing plan, which will create or preserve 100,000 affordable units statewide. Liberty Landing is a shining example of how we can use underutilized properties across our state. Now, a few years down the road, New Yorkers will be unlocking the doors to their beautiful homes in a place where people were once locked behind bars. They'll be free from worry with this new affordable housing. And it wouldn't be possible, again, without the support of the local community, the community board, all those who believe and saw this building for so long, that we can do better than this. And my friends, working together, we have. I want to thank the members of Community Board 4 who helped craft this vision for Bayview's redevelopment and who welcomed this project in their neighborhood with open arms. I know some of the board members are here with us today. Can you raise your hands? I want to thank all of you for leading by example on how we work to end New York's affordable crisis. Thank you. Okay, you don't have to be shy. All right, thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce another great partner in this effort as we meet all the challenges that our city faces together, Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel, who will say a few words. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Governor, and I really do appreciate the perseverance and focus that you and your administration have had on redeveloping the former Bayview Women's Correctional Facility. You know, the story goes way back, of course, 100 years, where it was originally a home for seafarers. And if you visit the building, you can see the details, as the borough president has, which are going to be preserved as part of this process. And Governor, I want to thank you for acknowledging Community Board 4. Jessica Chait, the chair, is here. They have played a instrumental role in making this site available for affordable housing, as well as focusing on the historic preservation and the community space. So you have affordable housing, historic preservation, and community space in one building. Win, win, win. So thank you, Governor. And let me also say that when I first assumed office back in 2013, this was one of the first items on our agenda. But Governor, it has taken you and your administration, since it is a maritime site, to right the ship, if you will, and make certain that this project comes to fruition. So I want to thank you, Governor, and then also note the crisis in affordable and supportive housing really should and is being addressed by the state of New York. We know that the supportive housing community has issued numerous reports about how New York City has fallen behind its goals. We have 100,000 people, folks, a night homeless on the streets of New York. Many of those need addiction services, mental health support, and a place to live. The new Liberty Landing will provide just that in a way that is harmonious with the Chelsea community. And thank you, Governor. Thank you, Assemblymember Simone, Borough President Levine, Councilmember Botcher, Congressman Nadler. This has been truly a community effort, and I'm so happy to launch it today. Thank you.
Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Governor, for your laser-like focus on housing. You are the housing governor. In the midst of an epic housing affordability crisis, the worst we've seen in the city and state, unfortunately, nowhere has it tougher than Manhattan, where average rents are $5,000 per month for market-rate apartments. That is pricing out middle-class families, of course, but even more devastating for low-income people and harder still for formerly incarcerated, returning citizens who really have no hope of securing housing at those rents. And there is documented evidence that when formerly incarcerated are well housed, it lowers recidivism rates. So what we're talking about here is also a win for public safety as well. And it almost didn't happen. When this building was damaged by Sandy, it could have been renovated and brought back as a prison, could have been knocked down. It was almost put to use by a foundation that few of us had ever heard of. And in the end, it was the community board which stood up and did something heroic, different from how other communities react. They didn't ask for market-rate housing or luxury housing or even housing that would be reserved for people in the neighborhood. They wanted to do something powerful. And they asked for housing for those in greatest need, including people who need transitional housing because they're unhoused, including the formerly incarcerated who need supportive services. There are not a lot of communities in New York City or New York State who would even accept this kind of proposal. But in this case, it was the community that brought it to government. And I'm thrilled now that the state, under the leadership of the governor, have moved so quickly to put this into practice. And I love the team that you've selected to lead here. The Osborne Association is so eminently qualified. They've been doing this work for almost 100 years. They've developed projects very similar to this already in other parts of New York City. And Camber, which is their development partner as well. I think they've worked with Osborne. So this team, this duo, is eminently qualified to succeed here. And in that spirit, I guess you're getting the introduction from the voice of God, but I'm going to tell you who's coming next, which is John Monsalve, who is the Executive Director, President, and CEO of the Osborne Association. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Borough President, and thank you, Governor. Again, I'm Jonathan Monsalve, the President and CEO of the Osborne Association, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you today for the unveiling of Liberty Landing. We're grateful to Governor Hochul for this investment and proud to partner with Camber Property Group to transform Bayview Correctional Facility into a housing opportunity, but also a community asset. Osborne serves individuals, families, and neighborhoods affected by the criminal legal system. We believe in everyone's capacity to change. We help create the conditions for people to heal and repair harm, restore their lives, and thrive. We're on the ground providing vital services to over 40 New York State prisons at Rikers Island and at multiple community sites, from the Bronx to Buffalo. We also operate supportive housing in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and transitional housing at the Fulton Community Reentry Center in the Bronx. The current housing crisis affects everyone, including people who are returning home from incarceration. Those who come home face powerful headwinds to restart their lives, including rampant discrimination in housing and employment. Meanwhile, safe and stable housing is demonstrated as one of the most critical factors in successful reentry, but also avoiding reincarceration. Building on our 90-year history and decades of experience providing reentry support, Osborne will expand our growing housing portfolio with Liberty Landing. The goal is to serve individuals coming home from prison and those who have experienced incarceration. We will offer workforce development programs and specialized job training, as you heard before, family and relationship coaching, and support to build skills for independent living, along with connections to a wide range of other activities. We also offer job training opportunities to low-income New Yorkers from every borough and in our abundant community space. As we have done at our other housing developments, we will help create a caring community, one where our residents find support from professionals and peers, and where the journey to reentry starts with dignity and hope. Thank you, Governor Hochul and the Empire State Development for this truly amazing opportunity.
Please remain seated while we take some photos.
Good afternoon. I'm also joined by two extraordinary public servants. As I mentioned before, Hope Knight, who's the CEO and president of Empire State Development, who is working so closely with us to identify properties, put out the RFPs, and help build more housing and economic development throughout our state. So I want to shout out to her and thank her for her work as well. Dan Monticello, who is our Commissioner of Docks, Correctional Services, and I want to thank both of them for the work they do. If there's any on-topic questions, we'll be happy to ask them.
Let's start with on-topics. We'll get to the other stuff, but if anyone has questions about Bayview Correctional, come on, throw us a bone. All right, thank you, Commissioners.
I think any other day there'd be a lot of interest, okay? Just nothing personal. We're good. It's still a great project. We'll do a lot more. See you next time. Okay. All right.
Henry, you want to start?
Yes, of course. Hi, Governor. How
Hi,
you doing
Henry.
today?
How are you?
So I was wondering, as a strong supporter of the president, if you got early word on what was happening or saw it play out like we did, and also you joined a chorus of Democrats really rushing to endorse Vice President Harris. Seems the vast majority of Democrats have done so, but not everyone, including Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. Do Democrats really need to rally around the Vice President right now, and what's your message to those who have not done so?
My message right now is we are so fortunate to have one of the most transformational presidents in American history during the time that I was governor of the state of New York. President Biden's legacy will have a long-term impact on our state, whether it's the 50,000 jobs that I work with President Biden to secure for upstate New York at Micron, to the largest public federally funded infrastructure project in American history with Gateway. Everywhere you look in the state of New York, Joe Biden had a profound influence, and I want to thank him on behalf of 20 million New Yorkers who are grateful for his service. Did not have earlier notice than he gave his staff, I assure you that. But yes, I was proud to stand with President Biden, and I had said all along, he conveyed he was in it to win it, and as long as he wanted to be in it, I was next to him, and I'm glad I did that. Now, I've also said we have an extraordinary vice president. I know a little bit about being number two. You're the most qualified to understand what is involved in the role you are expected to step into if circumstances arise requiring it. So I've worked with her. I've seen her in New York. She has been a partner of mine as well. And what I'm so excited about is drawing the incredible contrast between our expected nominee, Kamala Harris, Vice President, and the former president. I mean, just consider the following. A prosecutor against a convicted felon. A woman who has stood up for women's rights, who stands up for women, an individual who abuses women. A person who stands up and supports democracy, and a person who attacks it. So this is going to be a campaign for the ages, as people get a chance to see the starkest difference that we've seen in my lifetime. So I'm excited to be out there for her. I didn't hesitate. I speak on behalf of my state, but also will be convening our delegates very soon to talk about the fact that we have a lot of influence here in the state of New York. I'd like to point out that our 268 delegates, which I was very involved in selecting, that's the second largest of delegates that'll be at the Democratic Convention, second only to California. So we have a lot of clout here, and I wanted to make sure that everyone knew where I stood. Within a very short time of President Biden stepping aside, Kamala Harris emerging, and her decision to continue on the path to the presidency. With respect to other individuals, we have different roles to play. I spoke with both leaders, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. They also have conferences that they must gather their opinion before they speak on behalf of two entities, the Senate and the House of Representatives. That is what is, I'm sure, going on now. Those conversations are occurring in earnest, whereas I'm a governor, different stage.
Governor, are you concerned, Pat Ryan, he's in one of the swing districts, and several other candidates who are running on Long Island did not come out and endorse Harris. Are you concerned that the polling of the Biden-Harris administration, which is not so great in those districts, could hurt Democrats' chances?
Our chances of taking back the House of Representatives are excellent. I, as the leader of the New York State Democratic Party, have been laser focused since last year, building up the party infrastructure that was necessary to win the ground game. And that's exactly where you do that, especially our smaller rural communities in the Hudson Valley. You meet people at the door. You go to the VFW posts. You go to the diners. You go to the places of worship. You meet people where they are with a message that is strong and compelling, that Democrats have delivered and will continue to deliver, including our incumbent members of Congress like Pat Ryan. I look forward to helping all of them with the resources, the boots on the ground, the fact that we opened up 35, or we'll soon have 35 offices, campaign offices, unprecedented for a governor to be involved at that level. Over 70 staffers are being hired. So we're there to help them. And so I can't speak to their timing of endorsements, but I feel very confident that we are going to be all united behind Kamala Harris's presidency.
Do you have any regret that you stood with Biden up until the end, even though other Democrats were clearly looking at his health and saying that maybe it would be time to talk about another candidate? And also, you did wait a couple hours before endorsing Kamala Harris. What was going on within those hours between the president saying he's giving up his run and when you finally released your statement?
Traveling in cell phone areas around the state of New York. In fact, the vice president tried to reach me, and I was without cell phone temporarily, and then we subsequently played phone tag. So there's nothing to be read into that. I was certainly one of the earlier governors, as governors were, dealing with the business of running states as well. And regrets? No, I have no regrets. I'm proud I stood with the individual who has done more to change the history of this country than I can think of any others. In a short 3.5 years, what he has done for working families, to lift them up and to create new jobs and new industries, semiconductors and infrastructure. So I'm proud I stood with him. No regrets whatsoever, because I had seen him in person more than others. I had been with him the day after the debate, which was, not his best night, no doubt about it. But I was with him the next day. I saw the energy and the commitment. I sat down with him 5 days later with other governors, and he told all of us he's ready to go forward. So he was our nominee, duly elected during the primary process. That's why I stood with him. He was our nominee.
Touch base or continue the phone tag?
Same question. Did you end up speaking with Vice President Kamala Harris?
No, our schedule, I was on morning television, and that we told him that was the window. I wasn't free. I told him I had a press conference. I told him I might stick around and talk to my friends in the press. So I expect that we are just trying to schedule it. It really was multiple tries last night, and we had a jammed schedule this morning. So I'm not worried about making that call or having it happen. It'll happen, and I'll pledge my full support. I'm happy to campaign for her. I'll do whatever she needs to be victorious, because literally democracy is on the ballot this November, as well as women's reproductive rights. And I have talked about my strong commitment, not just here in New York, but for women all across this country, to have the same freedoms that my mother fought for, that I enjoyed, that my daughter does not have. My granddaughter better have those rights as a result of a change in administration.
So to your point about how you'll be campaigning for Vice President Kamala Harris, why should New York Democrats fall in line behind Harris? Shouldn't they get a choice in deciding who will be the Democratic presidential nominee?
I said where I stand, and I also said that I'll be conducting a meeting of our delegates this week.
One of the two. Go ahead.
I don't think that you said that you were playing phone tag with Vice President Harris, but I don't think that you directly answered Byrne's question about the thought process between your first statement on the president dropping out of the race and several hours later choosing to endorse Vice President Harris. Many people in New York, politicians, elected officials, endorsed her very quickly. I'm not saying that you were not quick, but you were a little bit slower than some of the other officials in New York. So what happened in those couple of hours? What was your thought process between him dropping out and you deciding to endorse? I'm
still not sure the premise behind the question. I was one of the first governors. I had spoken to Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer's, the leader of our party. I talked to the county chairs around the state, all to build up support for what I was going to do next as the leader of the Democratic Party in New York. So I still think There's nothing to be criticized about a time frame that is literally hours after her announcement. I had hoped to be able to talk to her as we had discussed with her staff, so I'd be able to, in my statement of support, say we just spoke and this is what we talked about. I thought that would add a little more depth to my endorsement of her. But when we weren't able to make that happen with cell phone disconnections, I was up Lake George speaking to labor leaders yesterday. I think that's all anybody needs to know. There's nothing to, nobody, well, I knew where I was standing, but as a leader, you also talk to others and let them know what you're doing, right? Let them know my steps, my plans. And so I took the opportunity to make some of those calls when I could, but also at the time, we were supposed to connect by phone. I was not able to be reached. We tried back. She was on a call. We missed each other again. And in the meantime, I said I won't wait any longer. I mean, I'd hoped to have that call completed, but it didn't materialize. So just a few hours into the whole process, I gave my full-throated support of our next President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
All right, last one, Juliet.
Yes, good morning, Governor. Did you speak at all with President Biden? Do you plan to speak with him? And also, given that Trump had a rally in the Bronx and there was a decent turnout, are you worried about, let's say, defectors from Democratic ranks?
No, not at all. I mean, New York will be strongly Kamala Harris country, and also we'll be picking up a sufficient number of seats to take back the House of Representatives and make Hakeem Jeffries a speaker from the state of New York. So no, I don't know. And also, President Biden's. I've talked to a number of the top people in the White House. President Biden's recovering from COVID. I certainly look forward to talking to him. His chief of staff called me, and so we've been engaged. But let the man recover from COVID. It's hard to talk when you have COVID.
All right, thanks,
Governor,
everybody.
quickly on congestion pricing, last week during your discussion with Dan Clark, you talked about a modified toll structure. You mentioned London and also carve-outs for the Broadway district there. Is that what you're talking about right now with lawmakers? Would you consider this modified toll structure?
No, I think if you go back and look at what I said to him, I did not make any news declaring a new policy whatsoever. I simply, when asked, what are other options? What is out there on the table? There are always many options that you can talk about.
Do you think that's a good idea?
I look at options when I make my decisions. That's how I operate. Always have, always will.
Great,
So,
thanks,
all right,
everybody.
thanks. I would say there's nothing new broke. I'm looking at options. I don't know how you define on the table. That it means it's going to go off from the table into the fire and become I don't know what you think on the table means. I'm simply clarifying that I have said I'm looking at multiple options, including what has happened elsewhere, what is happening in our own state, what's happening to working families in our country, and particularly here in New York State. I mean, those are the voices I need to listen to, the stress that hardworking New Yorkers are under right now. Thanks, everybody.